person stabbed, you say he was stabbed. And in the next paragraph, you say he was taken to Sacred Heart Hospital where he received treatment for
Chronological order.
Yeah.
When you pick up from the chronological, does everybody know what that means? In time order. Chronological means in time order. Like, if you were to write a story about us being here, you would start off by saying we got here at 1 o'clock. And at 10 after 1, Ed wrote on the board. And it, you know, in chronological order, time order, and how it happened.
Okay, did anybody finish? Who's almost wrapped up there? Okay. A few more seconds.
Or as editors like to say, short and sweet.
To the point.
Who thinks that there's good enough? Len? Ray? Okay, all right, that's good.
Yes.
Yes.
If you did one and one again.
Okay.
You can leave him.
Gather them up. Somebody over there can collect one.
That's all right. It's okay. Just as long as you got the facts down, you can do it later if you want to. Okay, you don't have time to do it now.
Done?
Quick, because we...
Okay, if you can look up in here for a minute, we're going to talk about something else, and then Ed's going to collect those for the ones that want to hand them in. We're going to read some of them also. But this part of the, if you're putting together your own newspaper, this is an important part because it's something that has to be done and is done every day by editors. Does everyone, I heard that you picked editors already?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay, so there are some editors in this room. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. Editors, first of all, are our bosses. All right. Ed and I are reporters, and we write for our editors, and they read our stories, and they write the headlines, and they also do what is called layout, laying out a page. Okay. Now this is a copy of the Times Herald. This is also from November. It's rather old, but I'll be able to show you a layout. Okay. On this front page, you'll see 3 pictures. Okay. One's very small. The other 2 are about a medium size, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stories on this front page, okay? Now, when the editor came in the morning, all right, I don't need to hold this up just right now. When the editor came in the morning, the first thing he looked at was what's called a dummy sheet, is what it is. No reason for being called a dummy, but that's what it's called. All right, and it's a blank piece of paper that looks like this. Okay, I'm going to pass this around. As you can see, there are lines going up and down the page here. If you count, there are 6 columns. These blank spaces in between the lines, they're columns. You can see on the paper, if if it goes straight across, there are also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns, all right? That's the standard size of most papers. The Inquirer is, I should mention that, but the Inquirer is this size. The Times Herald, most papers that are this size, not like the Daily News or anything, that are this size are 6-column papers, okay? Now, when the editor looks at this, and there's nothing on it, he has to decide what story. First, he looks at this, a list of all the stories that he has for that day, okay? All the stories and who wrote them, all right? He gets a chance to look at the stories, and you have to find out what is most important. The editor decides these 2 stories, or these 3 stories, or these 4 stories are our most important stories that we have here, and they're going to go on page 1, okay? Now today, all right, well, this isn't today's paper, but in this edition, there were 5 stories, all right? 2 of them were from our wire service. 3 of them were written by people from our paper, okay? Now what he did was, the editor got his pen and his little marker, okay, and he had all the pictures that they were going to use for that day, and he decided what pictures and what stories he was going to use on page 1, okay? Now when he was done laying out the dummy, okay, getting the stories and putting them on this page, this blank page, which I'm going to give you right now, what he came up with was something that looked like this, all right? I'm also going to pass this around. This is an editor's layout sheet after he has put the stories and the pictures in, all right? Deciding where they're going to go, all right? You can see a little bit. You'll be able to see it better when you look up close. I'm going to leave these here for you to look at. This here is a box in the corner, all right? It's the picture. This is a picture of an auto crash, okay? So he writes crash in the box where the picture he wants to go. So when they see that picture, they'll know that's where it goes. The story below it, okay, is there. The same with this picture over here. As I said, when you pass them around, you'll be able to see the likeness of the 2, all right? There's a box here with 1 story in it and a headline. He has the headline marked out. Everything that is marked out on this page, all right, right here, ends up on this page in the paper. That's how, when you pick up your paper, any story you see is where it is, okay? It's because the editor wanted to put it there, and he decided that was the most important. Headlines are also written by editors, okay? The headlines are right above the story. They're different sizes. There's different sized headlines, and you decide on the size, again, by the importance of the story. The Buell clips that we were sending around here, they had big, bold headlines across the top of the page because that was that day's most important story.
Not only was it that day's most important story, but it was probably that month's important story.
Okay?
The fact that someone would be sent to the electric chair.
So they had big, bold headlines, a big picture of the guy, and pictures of the 2 lawyers, all right?
And see, that's why they do that, so that it will be appealing to the eye. When people look at that, they have no idea what's on the paper, but
It draws your
looks
attention
good.
right there. Your eye can't see. When you picked up this paper, obviously you only see the top half. There's nothing else you could see but that story. So if they wanted, they wanted you to read that story, so they put a big picture, two pictures over here, a couple of different kind of headlines, so you knew what the story was about, and if you wanted to read it, there it was.
So the most important thing to remember about layout is to make it eye-catching and appealing.
And easy to read
Right.
and attractive, okay?
Let's go over some of these. You
All right.
never get everything you want to say in
That's
an hour.
right.
Okay, you tell some, I'll
Pass it on.
take some myself. Okay, I'll start off with this one. I'm not sure if this is good. Last night, Mrs. Thomas Jones heard her doorbell. She answered her doorbell, and there were 2 men there. They showed their police badges and said, "We're policemen doing a survey in the neighborhood." Now that's not bad, but the person left out a few important facts, like the money, the scar, the fact they knocked her to the ground. So really, to make this better, all you would have to do is just, as your first sentence say, Mrs. Thomas Jones of the 1000 block of DeKalb Street was knocked to the ground, assaulted, and robbed of $100 last night.
Here's a good one.
Okay?
All right, I'm going to read you this here. Mrs. Thomas Jones reported that two men rang her doorbell and said they were police officers. It was about 7:30 p.m. when this occurred. The two men showed police badges and said they were policemen doing a survey in the neighborhood. Mrs. Jones opened the door. She was then knocked down on the ground in her own kitchen by her assailant. The two men wrapped a scarf around her eyes and burglarized her home. They took at least $100 of merchandise and money. Mrs. Jones lives on the 1000 block of DeKalb Street.
That is
Okay.
great.
And that's very good, whoever that was. The
was
one
very
thing
good.
about this story, which is it's very, very well written because all the facts are there. At the end, we have that she lives at the 1000 block of DeKalb Street. If you want to put that up a little bit higher so that you know, okay.
You
of
should
course-
put that up.
All right, don't put that at the end. You have to put it up a little bit
That's
higher so
pretty
everybody knows
important.
where the woman is from.
Exactly,
Okay?
and where the incident occurred.
It doesn't say. You did. Okay, very good. Very good. Any questions as we're going here?
This one's not bad either. Last night, you guys and girls should get away from, as your first two sentences, say last night or whenever the time was. Because the time is important, but it's not that important. So, you should lead, your first couple words should be something that happened or the person that it happened to. But anyway, last night, a woman named Mrs. Thomas Jones was robbed by two men who rang her doorbell and said, "We're policemen doing a survey in the neighborhood." The woman opened the door and the men threw her to the ground. They wrapped a scarf around her eyes and took $100 from her home. That was nice and short, and it had all the facts in there. Had a few words
Does this
missing,
one?
but
Last night at the 1000 block of DeKalb Street, 84-year-old Mrs. Thomas Jones was robbed. Two men rang her doorbell saying they were policemen and showed fake badges. The lady let them in, got her on the ground, and tied a scarf on her eyes. They took $100 worth of goods and got away. Okay, that's great. The thing about this is, when you're making, when you make references to people in your stories, okay? You have people and you're going to be writing about the people. Now, when you mention her name the first time, it's Mrs. Thomas Jones, all right, of the 1000 block of DeKalb Street. The second time you mention her name, that's the second reference. You call her Mrs. Jones, okay, because that's her proper name. You don't refer to her or she or like that. You can say Mrs. Jones, all right? It's a proper way of referring to a victim.
also there's something about this. It says, whoever wrote it, they took $100 worth of goods. Now that's not entirely accurate, because what they took was $100 in cash. And there's a difference between $100 in cash and $100 in goods.
Okay.
So you have to make that clear to people.
Do you have any questions?
Here's a good one. Remember, try not to lead with last night. This one does it also. This would never get past our editors, by the way. Last night, Mrs. Thomas Jones was faked by false policemen.
That's good.
It's good. It's good. But
You're right for the National Enquirer.
yeah, it is a little bit flashy. If you could just sort of like make that a bit more conservative, if you know what I mean. Okay, and then in the second paragraph, the person has "it occurred at 7:30 p.m." Never, ever lead with "it" as your first word in a sentence, because people will read that and they'll say, "It? What?" So you can just say "it," substitute the words the assault, the theft, the burglary. Be specific. Yeah. I'll do that in a second here. Okay, so we'll just say the burglary occurred at 7:30 p.m. Mrs. Thomas Jones like Joe said, in the second reference, you don't have to say her whole name again, just Mrs. Jones or the victim. We'll say for this, Mrs. Jones heard the doorbell and opened the door. Two men showed police badges and said, "We are giving a safety check. Can we come in?" That's not funny. That's
Now,
not
wait a
funny at
second.
all.
Wait a second.
That's not a,
Okay.
that's nothing.
The thing about quotes, okay, that right there would be considered a quote because it sounds as if it's the guy, the two men who came in the door said that, all right? Now you can't say that they said that unless you know for sure that that's what they said. If Mrs. Jones told you that that's what they said, or if the police told you that's what they said, you cannot quote someone unless you know for a fact
Let me make
that
this
that is what
perfectly-
they said.
Let me make this perfectly clear. This kind of reporting should never happen. It should never, ever happen. There it is on the board. It says, quote, "We're policemen doing a survey in the neighborhood." And this person, whoever wrote it,
That
said,
is the quote, okay?
"We are giving a
Can't say-
safety check, and can we come in?"
All right. That's you. In other words, what that person did, and it's easy to do because you can just by reporting and thinking of your own self and what you imagine to have happened, you can think of something different. But when you went to the police station, that's what you read on the blotter, as he said. There's on the board there. That is exactly what they said, and that is what you have to use. You cannot change that in
You can't
any
use
way,
anything else.
and you can't add anything to it. You have to use what was given to you as fact.
Okay, so the last question, just to help this person out. They came in and tied her up. That's not entirely accurate either. They came in, but they didn't tie her up. They tied a scarf around her eyes so that she couldn't see what was going on. So whoever was the person who wrote this, you have to remain objective, and you have to stick just to facts. Okay, let's move on.
All right. I want to ask Miss Palumbo, and you, how many departments in your newspaper that you are having do you plan on having? Or not departments, maybe sections?
What do we have 6, I think. I have to slip up here.
Okay. What to you people here? What is the most important part of the newspaper? Let's get some hands.
First page,
Front page. What, the news part? Okay.
heading,
Headlines? Okay. But I mean like a section. The section, maybe I should put it differently. What part of the newspaper do you like the most? Let's hear it.
what's happening.
What's happening?
Yeah,
That's pretty good.
Comics.
I write a lot.
Comics, very popular.
That's also say
Comics,
It's crossword puzzles.
crossword puzzle, another very popular item. Plenty of things in the newspaper.
The front page and stuff like that.
Front page, the news, keeping up on current events, that's good. TV,
Sports.
sports, the big
Woman.
one.
Movie section.
Movie section. You want to go to movies? You find out what's in there.
Excuse me, just for a second. I gotta read this. This is a good one. This is a real good one. But the person led with last night again. But last night, fake policemen ransacked an old woman's home. Now that's good and short and to the point. It has everything in there. Mrs. Thomas Jones was robbed of $100 by fake policemen. They said, quote, you don't have to put quote in there. Whoever wrote that. Jeez. They said, we're policemen doing a survey in the neighborhood. Mrs. Jones opened the door and was covered over the eyes by a scarf. It occurred on January 17th at 7:30 on the 100 or the 1000 block of DeKalb Street. That last sentence, it, again, don't use it, and try to get the time and the location of the incident up higher in the story.
Can I assume you have an editor for each one of these?
The editors are listed on the back, aren't they?
Okay. All right. Justin?
Justine.
Justine.
Justine, we have a Justin and a
Okay,
Justine.
Justine. This is Justine, I think. And is this Carice? Pardon me if I don't pronounce your name right. And is that Kathy? I can't.
Yeah, Kathy Bowman?
Okay. All right.
No?
You people are editors? Let's start. Well, all the editors raise your hand. The editors that you have so far. Okay. And you are the editor of what? Which department? Or are you just an editor? Okay. You're all just general editors. Okay, got a lot of editors like our place, a lot of bosses. All right, I see. All right, you're going to have a front page, obviously. Every paper has a front page. For the Cole Manor School, what is going to be on the front page is the most important thing. You have any idea? Or what is news here? Anybody know? There's got to be news. There's news everywhere. It's happening.
Mr. Casey's class is going around blindfolded.
They're going around blindfolded. Now that's news. That's good news. All right. We got. You can get it. See now that is. Think about this. Sorry, I don't think you're gonna have pictures. No pictures. But if you were working for a newspaper that printed pictures, there's a great picture. A picture of a classroom with blindfolds on. Okay.
A kid named Jeff Harbaugh was playing rugby up and he fell and knocked his teeth out.
There you go. That's news.
That's
You get the fact. But that's a news story. Okay. Now when you go to write that story, now wait a second. He said Jeff, his name's Jeff, and he fell and he broke a tooth. Is that it?
Yeah, well, this kid knocked.
Okay, well now what you'd have to do is talk to either him and find out exactly what happened, or the nurse that he went to and find out what happened, what injuries he had, how he's doing now. You have to include all the things around it. How he's doing now, how it happened, and where he went after that.
How much it cost to
Big
get
test
his
coming
teeth
up.
fixed?
Big test coming up. Now there's news. I mean, everybody wants to know about news. I mean, about the test. All right, now that's sports. Okay, that's going into the sports department, right? That's important. Everybody likes to read the sports page. Where is the sports page going to be in your paper? Do you know, or we don't know yet? Okay.
These kids definitely have to have a million questions, right?
That's right. I just want to go through these sections and find out what they have involved with these. The Poet's Corner. What's that going to include?
Poetry.
Poetry by different.
By the students.
By students. Oh, that's going to be a great section because you're going to be able. That's creativity. You know, if you have an idea for a poem or a subject for a poem, and the Poet's Corner is here. It's a great outlet for all you inspired poets. Editorial. I'm surprised to see this. Does everybody here know what an editorial is?
We discussed it. And
Discussed it?
Has
All
any
right.
of the editors written any editorials?
No.
Well, every newspaper has an editorial page. We have an editorial page, and editorials are basically opinions. I don't know how far you're going to get in the 5th grade newspaper about opinions, but that's very good because people like to read other people's opinion. They don't necessarily agree with it all the time, but if there's an issue that a lot of people are talking about or thinking about, and someone has an opinion on it, they write it. You may not agree with it, but you can read it and see what another point of view. That's also where letters to the editor come in. Are you going to have them, you think? Maybe that'd be a good idea for your editorial page. Letters to the editor. That's great because the readers can take your shot at you. That's where they get us. They don't like something we write, they write the letter to the editor. And they get printed too. It's only fair. They get classified. Everybody has a classified section. Recipe page. Who's gonna be handling the recipe page? That should be a hot item.
Girls.
The girls?
girls, you
pun
submitted your
intended.
recipe to me yesterday.
Do we have a lot of recipes? That's great because then you can take it home and show your mom. And if it's for chocolate chip cookies, and you'll get some chocolate chip cookies. Comics. All right, we already said there are a lot of people who here reads the comic page.
Is there any aspiring artists here?
Oh, yes.
Are there?
That's great.
Do they,
All right.
do you create your own comics?
He
That's
does.
good.
What's your favorite comic over there? Yeah.
Garfield.
Garfield. All right.
I like Ziggy.
Ziggy. Any others?
Garfield.
Garfield. This is all-time Charles. How many of you read the Times Charles, anyways? Read it every day?
And we also get,
Every day?
we
Oh,
also
boy.
get the Inquirer every day
Huh?
here at school.
Well,
So they
it's
do-
okay. It's okay. It's not a bad paper.
Okay, Times
Yes. Most of them get the Times Herald at home, and then we get
That's-
the Morning Inquirer.
that's great
They
to hear.
read- They try to get them to read the newspapers.
What part of the paper do you read first? Comics first. So do I. All the time. Garfield. I go to Garfield first, then I go back to page 1.
Movies.
Movies. Comics. Comics. See that?
First page.
First page. All right. Good news. Sports?
Classified.
Classified? Why? You looking for a job? No? What do you read the classified section?
I don't know, just looking.
See what's buying and selling? That guy's gonna be you'll have a business section. There's your business items.
On the front page where there's that little box that says where everything is.
Index, that's also on that sheet that I was passing around. The index here, right, let me just see real quick. The editor, when he makes up page 1, he always has to put the index in the corner down there. Has to remember everything. Everything that goes into the paper, the editors have to remember and get them on these pages and get them into the paper. Because people have their habits, they look right down at the index or they look into the sports page. Review page. Oh, I see you have reviews over here. Are we going to have people doing reviews?
Yeah.
Reviews? What are we going to review?
We thought since a lot of the TV shows are reruns, they could look and see what's coming up that week.
All right.
And then they could, if they've already seen that TV show, they could do a little review and recommend it or not recommend it, whatever.
Books?
Yes, if they have books that they've read from our library and they would like to recommend
That's
them to
great.
someone.
Book review. Great. That's a great thing to do. Great experience for that. Yeah. Is that what you were going to say? Books? What were you going to say? Reviews are also kind of like opinions because you may see that, TV show that's on tomorrow night. You may have seen it already, and you may not have liked it, and you may write a review saying it's not very good, and I don't think you should watch it. But I may read that review and then watch the show and say, hey, I like that show. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But that's opinions. That everybody has one. Opinions are all over the place. All right. Well, that sounds like a pretty good newspaper there. We don't have a name for it yet, huh?
Not yet. I told them that next week we're going to pick a name. They're going to submit them. I told them to write down their ideas and they'll submit their names next week and then we'll select it. The paper, I believe, is to be out on the 13th of February. Was that the day it was picked?
Yeah. 19.
Yeah, I have it written down.
13th. All right. That's great. That's if we could get a copy of that,
I'll
I'm
be
sure
glad to send you a copy, yes.
we'd be definitely like to see a copy of the paper. Are there any other questions, general questions about the courthouse or the police beat or anything about newspapers that you want to know?
Have you ever gotten sued yet for miswriting something?
Myself? No,
No,
I've never
Times
got
Herald.
sued. Now, what happens with, I shouldn't say that. Lawsuits stem from inaccuracies that are reported. You try to avoid that, and when you're writing every day, sometimes it can wear on you, I guess, and you report an inaccuracy. But it's very hard to prove a libel case. Libel is what they call it when you sue you, okay? I have not been sued, and I hope I never am, and I hope none of you ever are.
The kids that, you copy the kids or the paper on, is that big? Are they big?
The copy of, pardon me?
The ones that copy the papers, are they big these things or are they little?
Oh, the presses.
Yeah.
Oh, they're huge. The presses are, the press room is bigger than the size of this room, and it's high, it has different floors. The presses are huge. The stories? We do. We do. Ed's going to show us a little later on about this little machine here, is a portable one, but we type our own stories in.
How do you find out, the other information, how old the lady was?
Well, the police, everything's public record when someone's arrested. Their age, their address, the police have that information for Ed, and with me, it's on the criminal records in the courts. They're all records.
But you should ask a lot of questions, too. Always ask questions.
Have you ever got a copy of the paper and then look at it and say there's something wrong with
Yes.
it?
Yes.
Tell the printers to stop the
Well,
press?
yeah, see, that's not, we can't really call them and say, stop the presses, because we're, like I said, reporters, and we have editors. If we get a copy of the paper, as soon as it comes off the press, and we see a mistake in the headline or a mistake, really important mistake, we tell the editor, and if he wants to change it, he'll call the press room and tell them to stop the presses, and then they'll change it. It's a very good question.
On there's some photos, it says UPI photo. What
Right.
does that mean?
UPI stands for United Press International, okay?
So it says Times Herald.
Right, Times Herald. Times Herald, when you see Times Herald, that means our photographer took it, okay? You mean the credit line. That's called a credit line. That's right above the caption. The caption tells you what the picture's about. The credit line tells you who took the picture.
How, when somebody gets caught, how can you tell what their name is?
When they get caught, well, the police, when they arrest the person, find out their name and their address, and their age, and all the things that they have to find out about them.
Okay, I'm going to have to wrap this up.
Very good.
And I want to thank these two gentlemen for giving us their lunch hour to come up here and share all their experiences with us. Can we give them a nice big hand?